Clawing It Back. Written and told by Kiefer Adams. When the Fat Controller returned from a recent holiday, he was shocked to learn that there was one extra engine that had arrived while he was away. He had originally ordered 2 shunters to do Edward's work, but soon discovered that someone else had returned. The Fat Controller arrived at the docks where he came across a garbage barge. In it was a bruised, battered and grubby Diesel 10. "I thought I made it clear you were not welcome to my railway," the Fat Controller thundered. "I don't know what you're talking about," Diesel 10 groaned. "I don't remember what happened or how I got here." "That's no excuse," interrupted the Fat Controller. "You can play your games with me all you like, but I will not tolerate this deceit. You will be sent to the works to be mended. Once you're repaired, I will decide what to do with you." The Fat Controller turned and walked away. Cranky lifted Diesel 10 out of the barge. Gordon was the only engine brave enough to take the battered warship Diesel to the works. In truth, Diesel 10 really couldn't remember what had happened. The last thing he remembered was falling off the Big Dipper, the largest viaduct on the island, and landing in the garbage barge. The hydraulics of his claw had been damaged beyond repair, so they had to be made from scratch all over again. Diesel 10 didn't like being at the works. His mind felt groggy, and he was trying to recollect what had happened. But he found that he couldn't. He was surprised when some of the engines puffed past him at the works, giving him cold and dirty looks. Some, like James and Henry, made rude remarks about him being dangerous and unreliable. But Diesel 10 was in a lot of pain to even respond. It took a few years, but at last Diesel 10, claw and all, was finally repaired. The Fat Controller sent him to the scrapyards, where he knew for the time being Diesel 10 would be out of the way and not causing any more trouble. When Diesel 10 arrived at the scrapyard, a sly grin spread across his face. "Now this is something I do remember," he chuckled. He wasted no time in loading trucks filled with scrap iron. The Ironworks brothers, Harry and Bert, were impressed by Diesel 10's presence. They were afraid of him at first, but when they saw how powerful he was with his claw, they gained newfound respect for him. Diesel 10 didn't actually mind working in the scrapyard. He had also remembered his hatred for the steam engines, and to be honest, he was glad to be away from them. "All I need is this scrapyard, good old Pinchy, and my wits and humour," he chortled to himself. Only the claw didn't seem to agree, as it thumped on Diesel 10's roof. "Ouch! Not Pinchy! I hate it when you do that," he grunted. Before long, summer came to the island of Sodor, and the Fat Controller announced that a new airport was going to be constructed to bring more holidaymakers to the island. The work had been delayed due to a recent storm and Thomas's recent trickery. But the construction of the airport and the recent rebuild of Tidmouth Sheds were the least of Thomas and Percy's worries. "I saw Diesel 10 at the docks today," said Percy, "collecting empty trucks for the scrapyard. I'm worried he's going to cause trouble again. He looks like he's remembered a few things." "That's what I'm afraid of," said Thomas. "I passed him yesterday. Ever since we saw him at the smelters, it was just like seeing him all over again the first time. I never want to experience that again. Besides," added Percy, "what can he do that's useful?" "Your guess is as good as mine," sighed Thomas. And the 2 engines bustled about with supplies for the airport. Before long, With a little persuasion from Thomas that the steam engines and the diesels needed to work together, the airport was finally finished. But unfortunately, Thomas had had an accident, which resulted in some trucks being pushed into a water tower at the airport and causing a crack in the runway. The workmen opted for George the steamroller and Harvey the crane engine to come and clear the line and fix the runway. Thomas knew that Harvey was on the other side of the island, but he did have one idea of who could help. By this point, Diesel 10 was allowed out of the scrapyard, but he didn't like the job he was given. Due to the recent storm, Diesel 10 had to clear away branches of fallen trees at the bottom of Gordon's Hill. "This work is beneath me," he grumbled. "Why couldn't I be back at the smelters? I was feeling more comfortable there." As Diesel 10 loaded the truck beside him, he heard a voice. "Excuse me?" Diesel 10 turned and saw Thomas. He growled loudly. But when Thomas was quick to explain the situation and point out that Diesel 10 would be the most useful engine of all, Diesel 10 reluctantly agreed to help. Many of the engines were shocked when Thomas brought Diesel 10 to the airport to clear the mess and for Thomas to collect George afterwards. Emily, Percy, Mavis, Diesel, Harry and Bert were inspired to help out. Soon, the runway was mended and the first aeroplane had landed at the airport. Engines of both diesel and steam cheered to the echo at the job well done. Diesel was most impressed. "You know, Diesel 10, some of us may have underestimated you," he said. "We certainly didn't at the scrapyards," said Harry. "Here, do you think you can lead us to a better future?" asked Bert. "As much as I don't want to admit it," said Mavis, "you are the strongest diesel we have on Sodor." "We can look up to you, Diesel 10, said Diesel. "How does that sound?" "Yeah, all right, I'll take the offer," said Diesel 10. Ever since the completion of the airport, there really wasn't much to see of Diesel 10. Some engines say you can still see him at the scrapyards, loading trucks and pretending to be as menacing as he once was. But some of the engines have looked right through this and know that he's really a useful engine just like them.